Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from the quiet agricultural terraces of the Azure Hills, cozy Shanya cultivation energy, and barnyard animal progression paths, and plunge head-first into the salt-sprayed, calculation-heavy tracking grids of historical fantasy ocean seafaring, weaponized mythical artifact hunting, and the deeply protective world of a legendary retired pirate captain reclaiming her crew. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored 12th century Indian Ocean trade routes, exclusive hidden maritime ports, and the lethal analytical parameters of a high-stakes rescue matrix with the adventures of Amina Al-SIRAFI, the exceptional, pulse-pounding introductory structural deployment anchoring the globally dominant, chart-topping Amina Al-SIRAFI adventure series by the absolute undisputed sovereign of Middle Eastern magical realism, intricate global world-building, and high-velocity historical fiction, Shannon Chakraborty, author of the legendary Daevabad trilogy. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at a romantic and developmental crossroads where a fierce, underestimated middle-aged heroine running an active survival loop, a dangerous, unpredictable supernatural adversary, and an absolute defense of a mother's personal sovereignty metrics collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn historical thrillers, where a targeted, hyper-observant female protagonist must navigate an absolute maze of corrupt colonial naval politics, forced crew recruitment phases, and a deadly ring of active supernatural or emotional gaslighting while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised oceanic ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep nautical profiling, calculated maternal boundaries, and absolute mental stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory sorceress mastermind, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, retired legendary pirate forced into one last impossible heist diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural survival perimeters, this book is engineered to lock you in. Chakraborty completely dominates the nautical fantasy adventure dynamic, capturing the heart-racing developmental momentum, suffocating institutional paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre vargs like R.F. Kuang, S.A. Chakraborty, Rebecca Roanhorse, and Samantha Shannon, while treating realistic medieval maritime navigation logistics, complex mythical alignment structures, and protective domestic tradecraft grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central retired pirate protagonist, Amina Al-SIRAFI, operating under a severe, calculation-heavy handicap of historic criminal boundaries, deep-seated crew rivalries, and a hyper-visible targeting profile by elite supernatural and imperial capos. Behind her rigorous maritime navigation footprints and tense ship logbooks lies an intricate matrix of hidden divine allegiances, deeply buried magical secrets, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Amina's collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight behind a lifetime of outrunning exploitation, her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from rival pirate flotillas, parsing complex behavioral shifts from her powerful, cold-eyed former crewmates and demonic entities, and shielding her vulnerable personal autonomy nodes and her hidden daughter from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite cleanup or divine offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter, offered a staggering financial payout she cannot refuse by a wealthy, desperate mother to track down and rescue a kidnapped granddaughter. Amina is pulled out of peaceful retirement. As the hunt's oceanic reconnaissance phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier, a series of suspicious administrative sabotage attempts, targeted political setups, and calculation-heavy naval ambushes threaten to permanently eliminate her from the living registry. The official diagnostic metrics of the regional tracking centers flash white-hot when her joint public operations and defensive movements reveal that her maritime alignment is radically, impossibly, altering the Indian Ocean's historical balance of power. The standard boundaries of routine hostage retrieval and peaceful seafaring protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. They are thrust directly into an active invisible war across the open sea, where deceptive noble houses, highly manipulative Frankish scholars, and a calculation-heavy underground ring of dark sorcerers launch aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress their survival data stream.
the tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the exclusive high society harbor ports, dark cavernous islands, and private fortified ship decks into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective maternal protagonist is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, environmental mapping skills, and raw emotional stamina to repair her perimeter and earn the true trust of her crew before the next political realignment permanently deletes her progress. When deceptive romantic red herrings, corrupted property ledgers, and calculation-heavy monster ambushes launch aggressive plays to delete her path, her survival instincts engage her final deployment tracks. Every midnight archival excavation, every silent choice to stand off against an Arathan family elder behind standard security barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at her reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the historical elite's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Chakraborty reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial setup or managing a forced pirate alliance. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of institutional hierarchy and supernatural supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective web of absolute loyalty around their union, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes evidentiary breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that historical emotional hazards have tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient heroine must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a historical fantasy adventure, nautical thrift suspense, Middle Eastern mythological drama, and high-velocity contemporary noir masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We're talking about that high-frequency, one whispered confession triggers a fatal harbor showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes family confrontation, or a heavy, possessive realization that an elite sorcerer has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Chakraborty writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private ship's hold before a major ocean storm, and the distinct, subtle scent of saltwater, wet timber, heavy canvas, fine cardamoms, gunsmoke ozone, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this introductory entry into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine romantic power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the complex modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, earned advancement to their horizon. The Adventures of Amina Al-SIRAFI is the definitive, pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary romance and contemporary billionaire suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell with your network to rewrite the data. So, secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the